Hello and welcome to Richard August, the autistic Christian MGTOW, the red pill man who lights it up blue. This is today's reading from the Apocryphal text of the 1599 Geneva Bible. Today's reading is from the first book of the Maccabees, chapters 1, 2, and 3, and may God add his richest blessing to this reading of his holy word. The first book of the Maccabees, chapter 1. After that, Alexander the Macedonian, the son of Philip, went forth of the land of Chetaim, and slew Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, and reigned for him as he had before in Grecia. He took great wars in hand, and won strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth. So went he through to the ends of the world, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the world stood in awe of him. Therefore his heart was puffed up, and was haughty. Now when he had gathered a mighty strong host, and had reigned over regions, nations, and kingdoms, they became tributaries unto him. After these things he fell sick, and knew that he should die. Then he called for the chief of the servants, which had been brought up with him of children, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So Alexander had reigned 12 years when he died, and his servants reigned, every one in his room. And they all caused themselves to be crowned after his death, and so did their children after them many years, and much wickedness increased in the world. For out of these came the wicked root, even Antiochus Epiphanes, the son of King Antiochus, which had been an hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, which enticed many, saying, Let us go, and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well, and certain of the people were ready, and went to the king, which gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Then set they up a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the fashions of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. So when Antiochus's kingdom was set in order, he went about to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of two realms. Therefore he entered into Egypt with a mighty company, with chariots and elephants, and with horsemen, and with great navy, and moved war against Ptolemaeus, king of Egypt. But Ptolemaeus was afraid of him, and fled, and many were wounded to death. Thus Antiochus won many strong cities in the land of Egypt, and took away the spoils of the land of Egypt. And after that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he turned again in the 143 year, and went up toward Israel and Jerusalem with a mighty people, and entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar, and the candlestick for the light, and all the instruments thereof, and the table of the showbread, and the pouring vessels, and the bowls, and the golden basins, and the veil, and the crowns, and the golden apparel which was before the temple, and brake all in pieces. He took also the silver and gold and the precious jewels, and he took the secret treasures that he found, and when he had taken away all, he departed into his own land, after he had murdered many men and spoken very proudly. Therefore there was a great lamentation in every place of Israel. For the princes and the elders mourned, the young women and the young men were made feeble, and the beauty of the women was changed. Every bridegroom took him to mourning, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, for all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. After 2 years the king sent his chief taxmaster into the cities of Judah, which came to Jerusalem with a great multitude, who spake peaceable words unto them in deceit, and they gave credit unto him. Then he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it with a great plague, and destroyed much people of Israel. And when he had spoiled the city, he set fire on it, casting down the houses thereof, and walls thereof on every side. The women and their children took they captive, and led away the cattle. Then fortified they the city of David with a great and thick wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. Moreover, they set wicked people there and ungodly persons, and fortified themselves therein, and they stored it with weapons and victuals, and gathered the spoil of Jerusalem, and laid it up there. Thus became they a sore snare, and were in ambushment for the sanctuary, and were wicked enemies evermore unto Israel. For they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary, and defiled the sanctuary, insomuch that the citizens of Jerusalem fled away because of them, and it became an habitation of strangers, being desolate of them whom she had borne. For her own children did leave her. Her sanctuary was left waste as a wilderness. Her holy days were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths into reproach, and her honor brought to naught. As her glory had been great, so was her dishonor, and her excellency was turned into sorrow. Also the king wrote unto all his kingdom, that all the people should be as one, and that every man should leave his laws. And all the heathen agreed to the commandment of the kings. Yea, many of the Israelites consented to his religion, offering unto idols, and defiling the Sabbath. So the king sent letters by the messengers unto Jerusalem and to the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the country, and that they should forbid the burnt offerings and sacrifices, and the offerings in the sanctuary, and that they should defile the Sabbaths and the feasts, and pollute the sanctuary and the holy men, and to set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and offer up swine's flesh and unclean beasts, and that they should leave their children uncircumcised, and defile their souls with uncleanness, and pollute themselves, that they might forget the law, and change all the ordinances. And that whosoever would do not according to the commandment of the king should suffer death. In like manner wrote he throughout all his kingdoms, and set overseers over all the people, for to compel them to do these things. And he commanded the cities of Judah to do sacrifice, city by city. Then went many of the people unto them by heaps, every one that forsook the law, and so they committed evil in the land. And they drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for succor. The 15th day of Caslev, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar. And they builded altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side, and before the doors of the houses, and in the streets they burnt incense. And the books of the law which they found they burnt in the fire, and cut in pieces. Whosoever had a book of the testament found by him, or whosoever consented unto the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death by their authority. And they executed these things every month upon the people of Israel that were found in the cities. And in the 25th day of the month they did sacrifice upon the altar, which was in the stead of the altar of sacrifices. And according to the commandment they put certain women to death, which had caused their children to be circumcised. And they hanged up the children at their necks, and they spoiled their houses, and slew the circumcisers of them. Yet were there many in Israel which were of courage, and determined in themselves that they would not eat unclean things, but chose rather to suffer death than to be defiled with those meats. So because they would not break the holy covenant, they were put to death, and this tyranny was very sore upon the people of Israel. 1 Maccabees chapter 2. In those days stood up Mattathias the priest, the son of Joannas, the son of Simeon, of the sons of Yorib of Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin. And he had 5 sons, Johanan called Gaddis, Simon called Thasi, Judas which was called Maccabeus, Eleazar called Abaron, and Jonathan, whose name was Apphus. Now he saw the blasphemies which were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, and he said, Woe is me! Wherefore was I born, to see this destruction of my people, and the destruction of the holy city, and thus to sit still? It is delivered into the hands of the enemies, and the sanctuary is in the hands of strangers. Her temple is as a man that hath no renown. Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets, and her young men are fallen by the sword of the enemies. What people is it that hath not some possession in her kingdom, or hath not gotten of her spoils? All her glory is taken away. Of a free woman she is become an handmaid. Behold, our sanctuary and our beauty and honor is desolate, and the Gentiles have defiled it. What helpeth it us then to live any longer? And Mattathias rent his clothes, he and his sons, and put sackcloth upon them, and mourned very sore. Then came men from the king to the city of Modin to compel them to forsake God and to sacrifice. So many of the Israelites consented unto them, but Mattathias and his sons assembled together. Then spake the commissioners of the king, and said unto Mattathias, Thou art the chief, and an honorable man, and great in this city, and hast many children and brethren. Come thou therefore first, and fulfill the king's commandment, as all the heathen have done, and also the men of Judah, and such as remain at Jerusalem. So shalt thou and thy family be in the king's favor, and thou and thy children shall be enriched with silver and gold, and with many rewards. Then Mattathias answered and said with a loud voice, Though all nations that are under the king's dominion obey him, and fall away every man from the religion of their fathers, and consent to his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers. God be merciful unto us, that we forsake not the law and the ordinances. We will not hearken unto the king's words to transgress our religion, neither on the right side nor on the left. And when he had left off speaking these words, there came one of the Jews in the sight of all to sacrifice upon the altar which was at Modin, according to the king's commandment. Now when Mattathias saw it, he was so inflamed with zeal that his reins shook, and his wrath was kindled according to the ordinance of the law. Therefore he ran unto him and killed him by the altar, and at the same time he slew the king's commissioner that compelled him to do sacrifice, and destroyed the altar. Thus bare he a zeal to the law of God, doing as Phinehas did unto Zambri the son of Salom. Then cried Mattathias with a loud voice in the city, saying, Whosoever is zealous of the law and will stand by the covenant, let him come forth after me. So he and his sons fled into the mountains, and left all that they had in the city. Then many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there, both they and their children, and their wives, and their cattle, for the afflictions increased sore upon them. Now when it was told unto the king's servants and to the garrisons, which were in Jerusalem, the city of David, that men had broken the king's commandment, and were gone down into the secret places of the wilderness, then many pursued after them, and having overtaken them, they camped against them, and set the battle in array against them on the Sabbath day, and said unto them, Let this now be sufficient. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and ye shall live. But they answered, We will not go forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to defile the Sabbath day. Then they gave them the battle. But the other answered them nothing, neither cast any one stone at them, nor stopped the private places, but said, We will die all in our innocence. The heaven and earth shall testify for us that ye destroy us wrongfully. Thus they gave them the battle upon the Sabbath, and slew both men and cattle, their wives and their children, to the number of 1,000 people. When Mattathias and his friends understood this, they mourned for them greatly, and said one to another, If we all do as our brethren have done, and fight not against the heathen for our lives, and for our laws, then shall they inconsistently destroy us out of the earth. Therefore they concluded at the same time, saying, Whosoever shall come to make battle with us upon the Sabbath day, we will fight against him, that we die not all, as our brethren that were murdered in the secret places. Then came unto them the assembly of the Assyrians, which were of the strongest men of Israel, all such as were well-minded toward the law, and all they that were fled for persecution joined themselves unto them, and were in help unto them. So they gathered a power, and smote the wicked men in their wrath, and the ungodly in their anger. But the rest fled unto the heathen, and escaped. Then Mattathias and his friends went about and destroyed the altars, and circumcised the children by force that were uncircumcised, as many as they found within the coasts of Israel. And they pursued after the proud men, and this act prospered in their hands. So they recovered the law out of the hand of the Gentiles, and out of the hand of kings, and gave not place to the wicked. Now when the time drew near that Mattathias should die, he said unto his sons, Now is pride and persecution increased, and the time of destruction, and the wrath of indignation. Now therefore, my sons, be ye zealous of the law, and give your lives for the covenant of our fathers. Call to remembrance what acts our fathers did in their time. So shall ye receive great honor and an everlasting name. Was not Abraham found faithful in temptation, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness? Joseph, in the time of his trouble, kept the commandments, and was made the Lord of Egypt. Phinehas our father, because he was zealous and fervent, obtained the covenant of the everlasting priesthood. Jesus, for fulfilling the word, was made the governor of Israel. Caleb, because he bare witness before the congregation, received the heritage of the land. David, because of his mercy, obtained the throne of the kingdom forevermore. Elias, because he was zealous and fervent in the law, was taken up even into heaven. Ananias, Azarias, and Misael, by their faith, were delivered out of the flame. Daniel, because of his innocence, was delivered from the mouth of the lions. And thus ye may consider throughout all ages, that whosoever put their trust in him shall not want strength. Fear not ye then the words of a sinful man, for his glory is but dung and worms. Today is he set up, and tomorrow he shall not be found, for he is turned into his dust, and his purpose perisheth. Wherefore, my sons, take good hearts, and show yourselves men for the law, for by it shall you obtain glory. And behold, I know that your brother Simon is a man of counsel. Give ear unto him always, he shall be a father unto you. And Judas Maccabeus had been mighty and strong, even from his youth up. Let him be your captain, and fight you the battle for the people. Thus shall ye bring unto you all those that observe the law, and shall avenge the injuries of your people. Recompense fully the heathen, and give yourselves to the commandment of the law. So he blessed them, and was laid with his fathers, and died in the 146th year. And his sons buried him in his father's sepulchre and Modin, and all Israel made great lamentation for him. 1 Maccabees chapter 3. Then Judas his son, called Maccabeus, rose up in his place, and all his brethren helped him, and all they that held with his father, and fought with courage the battle of Israel. So he gat his people great honor. He put on a breastplate as a giant, and armed himself, and set the battle in array, and defended the camp with the sword. In his acts he was like a lion, and as a lion's whelp roaring after the prey. For he pursued the wicked, and sought them out, and burnt up those that vexed his people, so that the wicked fled for fear of him, and all the workers of iniquity were put to trouble, and salvation prospered in his hand. And he grieved divers kings, but Jacob rejoiced high his acts, and his memorial is blessed forever. He went also through the cities of Judah, and destroyed the wicked out of them, and turned away the wrath from Israel. So was he renowned unto the ends of the earth, and he assembled together those that were ready to perish. But Apollonius gathered the Gentiles and a great host out of Samaria to fight against Israel. Which when Judas perceived, he went forth to meet him, and smote him, and slew him, so that many fell down slain, and the rest fled. So Judas took their spoils, and took also Apollonius' sword, and fought with it all his life long. Now when Sarona, prince of the army of Syria, heard that Judas had gathered unto him the congregation and church of the faithful, and went forth to the war, he said, I will get me a name, and will be glorious in the realm. For I will go fight with Judas and them that are with him, which have despised the king's commandment. So he made him ready to go up, and there went with him a mighty host of the ungodly to help him, and to be avenged of the children of Israel. And when he came near to the going up of Beth-horon, Judas went forth to meet him with a small company. But when they saw the army coming against them, they said to Judas, How are we, being so few, to fight against so great a multitude, and so strong, seeing we be so weary and have fasted all this day? Then said Judas, It is an easy thing for many to be shut up in the hands of few, and there is no difference before the God of heaven to deliver by a great multitude or by a small company. For the victory of the battle standeth not in the multitude of the host, but the strength cometh from heaven. They come against us with a cruel and proud multitude to destroy us, and our wives, and our children, and to rob us. But we do fight for our lives and for our laws, and God himself will destroy them before our face. Therefore be not ye afraid of them. And when he had left off speaking, he leapt suddenly upon them. So was Sauron and his host destroyed before him. And they pursued them from the going down of Beth-horon unto the plain, where there were slain 800 men of them, and the residue fled into the land of the Philistines. Then the fear and terror of Judas and his brethren fell upon the nations round about, so that his fame came unto the king, for all the Gentiles could tell of the wars of Judas. But when King Antiochus heard these tidings, he was angry in his mind. Wherefore he sent forth and gathered all the power of his realm, a very strong army, and opened his treasury, and gave his host a year's wages in hand, commanding them to be ready for a year for all occasions. Nevertheless, when he saw that the money of his treasures failed, and that the tributes in the country were small because of the dissension, and the plagues that he had brought upon the land in taking away the laws which had been of old time, he feared lest he should not have had now at the second time as at the first, for the charges and gifts that he had given with a liberal hand afore, for in liberality he far passed the other kings that were before him. Wherefore he was heavy in his mind, and thought to go into Persia, for to take tributes of the countries, and to gather much money. So he left Lysias, a nobleman, and of the king's blood, to oversee the king's business, from the river of Euphrates unto the borders of Egypt, and to bring up his son Antiochus until he came again. Moreover, he gave him half of his host and elephants, and gave him the charge of all things that he would have done. And concerning those which dwelt in Judah and Jerusalem, that he should send an army against them, to destroy and root out the power of Israel and the remnant of Jerusalem, and to put out their memorial from that place, and to set strangers for to inhabit all their quarters, and part their land among them. And the king took the half of the host that remained, and departed from Antiochia his royal city, in the year 147, and passed the river Euphrates, and went through the high countries. Then Lysias chose Ptolemaeus the son of Doraminius, and Nicanor and Gorgias, mighty men, and the king's friends, and sent with them 40,000 footmen and 7,000 horsemen, to go into the land of Judah, and to destroy it as the king commanded. So they went forth with all their power, and came and pitched by Emmaus in the plain country. Now when the merchants of the country heard the rumor of them, they took very much silver and gold and servants, and came into the camp to buy the children of Israel for slaves. And the strength of Syria and of strange nations joined with them. Now when Judas and his brethren saw that the trouble increased, and that the host drew near unto their borders, considering the king's words, whereby he had committed to destroy the people and utterly abolish them, they said one to another, Let us redress the decay of our people, and let us fight for our people and for our sanctuary. Then the congregation were soon ready gathered to fight and to pray and to desire mercy and compassion. As for Jerusalem, it was not inhabited, but was as a wilderness. There went none that was born in it, in or out at it, and the sanctuary was trodden down, and the strangers kept the fortress, and it was the habitation of the heathen, and the mirth of Jacob was taken away, the pipe and the harp ceased. So they gathered themselves together, and came to Mizpah before Jerusalem, for in Mizpah was the place where they prayed aforetime in Israel. And they fasted that day, and put sackcloth upon them, and cast ashes upon their heads, and rent their clothes, and opened the book of the law, wherein the heathen sought to paint the likeness of their idols, and brought the priest's garments, and the firstfruits, and the tithes, and set there the Nazarites, which accomplished their days. And they cried with a loud voice toward heaven, saying, What shall we do with these? And whither shall we carry them away? For the sanctuary is trodden down and defiled, and thy priests are in heaviness and brought down. And behold, the heathen are come against us to destroy us. Thou knowest what things they imagine against us. How can we stand before them, except thou help us? Then they blew the trumpets and cried with a loud voice. And after this Judas ordained captains over the people, even captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, and captains over fifties, and captains over 10. And they commanded them that builded houses, or married wives, or planted vineyards, or were fearful, that they should return every one to his own house according to the law. So the host removed, and pitched upon the south side of Emmaus. And Judas said, Arm yourselves, and be valiant men, and be ready against the morning, to fight with these nations, which are gathered together against us, to destroy us and our sanctuary. For it is better for us to die in battle, than to see the calamities of our people and our sanctuary. Nevertheless, as the will of God is in heaven, do it. So be it. Thank you for watching and listening. This has been Richard August, the autistic Christian MGTOW, the red pill man who lights it up blue. This has been the apocryphal reading from my 1599 Geneva Bible for today. I invite you to like and share this video with others, and to subscribe to my video channel. And as you subscribe, I invite you to hit the tip jar on the top of my BitChute page. It is the monetization link, where you can donate to me by PayPal. Your donations would be greatly appreciated. And of course, like I said, like and share this video, and share it with others. And I also invite you to come back tomorrow for further readings from the book of 1 Maccabees.